a zona de Verdelho,
Yeah.
which is a specially demarcated area of about, which would be equal to maybe 80, 70 or 80 acres of this grape grown on the ground with rocks around it to
Oh.
keep it warm from the ocean,
Oh,
because
interesting.
it's an island.
Oh,
And
curious.
it's not that far from the ocean.
So they wouldn't be elevated like this.
No, this is all my grapes, and we have a lot of growth this year because we've had such a huge amount of rain. This is generally, in my 14 years of growing, I've not seen this much growth.
Yeah.
And we've not watered it. This is just from the natural rain this year. And I think we're going to have an extremely light crop. Here starts to see the Verdelho. A very green stage.
Yeah.
It's one of the earliest grapes.
Oh, I was wondering, it ripens early?
Yes, this is, I've actually have harvested it as early as August 11th.
Oh, wow.
Which is extremely early.
That is
The
early.
wineries are generally unprepared for Verdelho because, most grapes starts middle of September through October. When you start to get into November, then it's iffy, especially none of my grapes here because of weather and rain. And, rain and grape harvest doesn't mix. But this is very, very early, a very open cluster of fruit.
Oh, is that typical?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Some of my Tempranillo this year and the Torrontes, which is a very rare white grape I grow, very skeptical about how much crop we're going to have. In some of the blocks, I think one of them I think we might not even pay to harvest because we had such miserable weather in May. I don't think it went 3 or 4 days without wind and rain. And this is when, during that time of, April and May, depending on the weather, is when, this is a fruit, and these are like individual flowers, and when they bloom, they need to pollinize and then form a cluster. This cluster is very open, but I see some of the other varieties, if it's windy and rain, the cluster stays closed, it's not happy, it doesn't pollinize, and therefore you have what's called shatter. And it looks like somebody shot it with a shotgun.
Oh, right, the little tiny
berries that aren't going to form, and they'll fall off. Some of this makes excellent wine, but from a grower standpoint, there's not much here. Not much weight, not much juice, but it'll be probably very, very good wine if we have enough to harvest. So that's part of farming.
Okay, yeah. What's your production of Verdelho?
Well, I have about probably about 12 acres of Verdelho. And Verdelho is not a very, I farm for quality of grapes and not volume of fruit. So generally speaking, this runs about 4.5 tons per acre, which sounds like a lot, but not, some places down in the valley, they can get 10 tons to the acre. But around 4 to 5 tons per acre on this type of trellis, is a very nice, high quality crop. And this Verdelho currently right now goes to about 6 wineries. Now there's one large winery wants to start doing Verdelho. I'm not sure that I'll have enough to sell to them, but my smaller wineries, and then Alta Mesa Cellars does a small amount of Verdelho. And I started doing that to sort of showcase Verdelho and the Tempranillo and the Tannat, some of these odd non-mainstream grapes, because they're delicious. Starting in '99 and then formed in 2000, then brought over in the spring of 2001 and planted. And it takes about 3 years to form this canopy, not this big, to form a canopy. And then at that time, at the 3rd year, we get a small production. And then the 5th year on becomes more. This year, the growth on this is extraordinary. These have been clipped. We haven't had the thinning crew come in yet. But we might not do a whole lot of thinning. This is because of the rain this year, this is abnormal amount of size of canopy, which is canopy is the total plant. But not a lot of, that's a very, very small cluster for Tempranillo and very open. So I feel that it's going to ripen early.
Yeah, it looks as far along as your Verdelho.
Yeah.
If not further.
Yeah. Well, these will take longer. Verdelho will be the first grape, and then Tempranillo means early, but in reality it's generally mid to late September. And generally we thin this down to one cluster or two clusters per shoot, depending on the vigor. Like this is, I'll be frank, I've never seen one this big, and it's because of the rain we've had this year. We've had quite a few years of drought. Although the vineyards are irrigated, we've not turned on the water yet. And here it is, June 28th. We haven't watered.
And
So I did it in 09 and 010, and that's what you tasted. Those 4 bottles of samples out of the barrel, and I was so happy with it. And I think is going to be a great blender with this and Tempranillo to make a great drinking wine. I was so enthused, I took and grafted.
Oh, the clusters.
Yeah, look how tight this cluster is.
Yeah.
So it's just a different grape.
Oh yeah.
Although this year the clusters are smaller for some reason, but we seem to have plenty of them. So I'll take and evaluate this later on, and we'll open these up, and maybe some of these small clusters will be thinned and put on the ground, so that these other clusters can grow and be more develop flavors better and ripen.
Oh wow.
It's full of little bones.
Oh my goodness.
It's hard to believe.
Those are the little bowl bones?
Yeah, well, or gophers or both.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Oh, there's part of a skull.
Where?
Little tiny skull right there.
Where do you see that one?
I think it's right by this plant.
Oh yeah, right there. Look at that. Well, that's bigger than a vole. That might be a gopher. Isn't that something?
This owl has been busy.
Yeah.
So let's take a look up there. Can't see anything.
No, they're nocturnal,
sleeping.
so